The following program is about preventing child sexual abuse and may not be suitable for younger audiences. Parental discretion is advised.
Never thought it could ever happen to me, ever, especially to one of my children.
The abuse started around age 2, and it continued until about 15 or so.
I didn't want to present my story first because it was disgusting.
And when children were around, and then I could get children into a situation to look at their bodies or to look at my body or to do all these little deviant things, this little bit of touching here and there, I did it.
I do recall the nibbling on the ear in between my 10 and 11 years of age. And that's when it started.
When I moved, he had a girlfriend in the house, and the girlfriend moved out about 2 years, a year and a half after we moved from Haiti, and it started after that.
I came out of the shower because it was very small to get dressed, thinking that he would be waiting outside the dorm. But instead, he was waiting for me inside, and that's where he proceeded to lay me on the bed and abuse me.
I remembered an uncle of mine and him having his hands on me in the basement of his home. I remembered other things that were very disquieting to me.
My first abuser was whenever I was 7 and 8 years old. And that was a person that was close to my life, and a person that was someone I would trust.
People think, well, we don't know. I don't personally know somebody who would sexually abuse children. And in fact, what I would say is each one of us does.
Sex abuse can occur in every kind of family. This occurs in rich families, poor families, doesn't matter. In Florida, where we're from, all over the place. It occurs in all cultures. It occurs in all places.
6 out of 10 offenders are either neighbors, babysitters, or family members. So I think it's very easy for those types of offenders to get into the family system because they're safe. Everybody likes their neighbors. Everybody likes their family members.
I thought that her and I were good enough friends and close enough that she knew my every thought. We shared a lot of things.
How can it be? This was a sergeant in the Navy. We were farm workers. You know, people like that don't do stuff like that to us.
I was confused. I was like, is this his way of showing paternal love, or is this really what I think it is? Because for you to make a statement saying, are you still a virgin? I don't want anybody having the first try. Your father her father has to have the first taste, and that just disgusted me.
They were people close to me. They were people that I trusted, people that my family liked, people that were important people in my life. They were close to me. They were my family.
He lived down the street from us, and kids wandered back and forth then and spent time at Uncle Clyde's house, and he was a pedophile.
It crosses all cultural lines, all ethnic lines, all everything. I mean, nobody's exempt from having this happen to them, and that's the unfortunate part about it.
The only risk factor of being a victim of child sexual assault is being a child.
I think one of the things that we've really learned is that there's a wide variety of this, right? And for some people, it's just like there's a wide variety of perpetrators. Some people can be very preferential. Some don't care how old you are.
I felt that I always said to the boys, if anyone ever touches you inappropriately, but it was always geared to a coach. I didn't even think to tell my children about a female.
I think our society needs to realize that sexual violence isn't something that is gender specific. Both men and women are victims, and both men and women are perpetrators.
It could be your child, it could be your neighborhood, it could be your church, it could be your mosque, it could be your temple. It will happen if you are not careful, because there are people out there that want to harm your children.
No, I would not want me as a neighbor. I did monstrous things, therefore I'm a monster.
Every year in Florida, tens of thousands of children are abused or neglected. Many more continue to suffer because their abuse is never reported. In every case, there are signs. They may not be obvious. Reporting child abuse can save a life. And under Florida law, it's everyone's responsibility. Don't miss the signs. Report child abuse. Call 1-800-962-2873.
One time she was in the closet. She was laying there, hiding in the closet, and I put my hand inside there and touched her on her. The feelings that I felt were just for sexual gratification mostly. You know, I just wanted the children to know that if they wanted to play with our sexual organs, that I could do that, and I would do that. Children liked me. Okay, children were attracted to me. I used to talk like Donald Duck. I had little funny things I'd do, and we'd laugh and joke, and that was good. That was healthy, I thought.
Pedophiles are people who look normal, right? They go to church. One of the things we found out in the Catholic Church, and in the other religious institutions, but in my church it was the priest everybody liked, of course, because pedophiles by definition are very charismatic people. They're people that we trust with our children.
They may be well-spoken, they may be well-educated, and so you make the assumption that because someone presents well, they don't offend, but that has no correlation.
Honestly, I knew that, I was, and that I was going to try to have a relationship with especially the one little girl that was 6. She was, I thought she was real cute and everything.
The predator who gets to know their victims is often doing it deliberately. So for example, that might be the individual that meets a woman who has small children and will develop a relationship with the woman in order to get into the household and to get access to the children. That individual may not even have any stranger victims because they may prefer to get to know the child. And that's the individual that may do extensive grooming.
I would just be friendly, play, give them some brownies and let them have colors and crayons and do some artwork. And first it starts out that way.
Predators look for something that in that moment, and it doesn't even mean in a big scale, that the child needs something and steps in and offers it and begins to build a friendship in that way, sort of grooms the child to trust him or her.
I think predators are very talented at getting to children. I think it's something they actually give thought to, and then they follow through on. I think they do gifts. I think that they will try to ingratiate themselves to the family. I think they will take children to places that maybe their parents can't afford to take them. I think when the kids are a little older, they may bring them over to their house and offer alcohol or drugs.
It's not like I would go up to every little girl or boy. And in fact, I wasn't really interested in boys anyway, but every little girl and try to have something go there. It wasn't like that.
They don't start assaulting that child right away, and it could start with accidentally showing their genitals, or walking in on the child in the bathroom, or slipping with bad language. It's just testing those lines, those boundaries.
People have an idea that if someone's sexually abused, they're grabbed off the street and stolen away, and it's physically violent. For most people like me, it's a very gradual process.
Children that I was with never made it seem like, don't do that or I'll scream, or don't do, don't touch me, or don't.
When you talk about predators and offenders in that grooming process, it goes hand in hand with secret keeping. It's all a secret. The relationship inherently is a secret.
I didn't tell her that she could get in trouble. I just said you could get me in trouble, and she didn't want to get me in trouble.
I feel like my stepfather definitely did groom my mother also. I think she knew that something was happening, but again, the loving relationship didn't let her, look into it.
If I suspect a child's being harmed,
I commit.
I'll do something.
I'll report it.
Even if I don't have all the details.
Even if I'm not sure.
I'll take a step to protect the child.
For me, it's just a call.
Just a call.
Just a call.
For a child,
it's everything.
I commit my eyes,
my voice,
to protect our children.
Don't miss the signs. Report child abuse. Call 1-800-962-2873.
There may have been signs. There may have been things that she saw. But I imagine it was just as confusing for her as it was for me.
There are a lot of different signs that parents can look for to identify if a child was sexually assaulted. If the child did not have a problem bedwetting, older, and now they're having accidents, thumb sucking, that withdrawn behavior. They never had a problem going with a particular adult, and now they're terrified. If you come behind them or touch them from the back, and they startle easily.
Night terrors. There's a lot of things, changes in grades at school. If you had an A student and all of a sudden they're a C or D student, what happened?
The importance of being able to recognize the signs of abuse and being able to provide opportunities for children to be removed from situations where they're experiencing that is absolutely paramount to protecting our children.
I think the first thing that you'd want to do is pay attention to the children. If the children are telling you that something's wrong or amiss, don't disbelieve them.
The first time I tried to disclose, it was actually with a neighbor.
They may not know how to articulate that there's a problem, or they might, but take them seriously.
She gave me this look like, oh my God. So, that immediately put up a barrier for me. I said, yeah, she got scared, so I also got scared.
One of the big things we know is when children would tell and people didn't believe them. And what did we just do? The perpetrators told them, if you tell, nobody believes you. So what does the child learn? Put up with it. Nobody's going to believe what you're saying. So I think that's the importance of believing what children say.
The thought of childhood sexual abuse is such a terrible thought for a parent to entertain that it's very often the last thing a parent wants to think.
I didn't even think to ask my son, did she ever do anything with you? Because I thought her and I had a relationship and she would know better than to do it to my son.
If my parents had come to me and realized that maybe I wasn't being as open as I used to be, or it looked like maybe I was keeping secrets, or I just wasn't sharing how I felt. Maybe if someone had come to me and said, are you okay? Is anyone hurting you? Just the simple questions.
Childhood sexual abuse really is, it's one of those issues in society that people don't really want to talk about. And I think even historically, if you look back, it's one of those issues that people like to sweep under the rug and would rather ignore it than face it.
Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to have a conversation with your child.
We never talked about stuff like that in Haiti. My family members, I was young. I was 13 when I left. You don't even talk about sex to your parents.
No one talked about sex. It's a taboo. You just don't talk about it. It's something that grown-ups did. I mean, my mom never told me about sex. We never had the so-called talk.
I grew up in a pretty conservative religious family, and sex was never, ever talked about. I mean, as far as my parents having the talk with me, I was told that they had a book on the shelf in the basement in the laundry room. If I was interested, I could look at it and it would tell me things I'd probably need to know.
It's not as easy as one would think that you would run to a parent to tell them what's going on. First of all, there's a huge piece with shame and embarrassment. I don't want, my mom or dad to think that I'm dirty. I know for me, I didn't want my dad, not that there's anything wrong with it, but I didn't want my dad or my mom to think I was a lesbian. I didn't want them to think that I wanted this, that it went on for so long and I didn't tell the first time. So really, I wanted it to happen. There's also threats that go on, power struggles with the offender. I'll do this to your sister or your brother. I'll hurt you. I'll hurt your mom. They won't believe you. They'll think that you're a liar. They'll send you away.
You can make your little girl or you can make your little boy a stronger person and let them have the courage and the strength to know that when something happens to them, that you are a safe place for them to be.
Every year, tens of thousands of children in Florida are abused or neglected. Many will be victims of sexual abuse, usually by someone they know and trust. Sometimes adults can miss the signs, and children don't always know how to ask for help. If you suspect a child is being abused, report it today. Don't miss the signs. Report child abuse. Call 1-800-962-2873.
The effects of this is, I can't relate to the physical part of it with some men that are out there, but the emotional part, when I think of it now, it's affected me for 35 years.
When our children are abused, whether it's sexually, physically, emotionally, those scars stay with children, in essence, sometimes for a lifetime. And then it manifests itself in underperforming children in school. They potentially act out and may get involved with law enforcement and other problems. And then they lose hope in their life.
It lowered my self-esteem to the ground. I didn't think I had any worth.
In your everyday life, you're engaged with somebody either at the dry cleaners or in your professional life, or in your family, with somebody who's suffering the consequences of child sexual abuse. You just don't know that what you see, either the depression or the anxiety or the interpersonal difficulty, is a consequence of that.
I grew up being told you're not like all the other boys by my perpetrator, that I was different and I had to keep away from them. He wanted to keep me isolated. So, even now in my 50s, I still hear that voice, you're not like all the other boys.
I used to not be able to sleep at night in the dark, but now I'm okay. Some days I have where, I would need the light on, but other days I'm fine. So it's on and off.
It has ongoing impacts in their family relationships, difficulties in their primary relationship with their significant other, either their husband or their wife, and then an effect on their relationships with their children.
I can go back and pinpoint times of things that I was upset about that I don't even know why I was upset or who I was upset with. There's times where I even call her now and say, Ma, I'm sorry for talking to you that way, because I catch myself.
That suffering is unnecessary and damaging to the survivor, his or her family, and our culture.
Do you think that's a safe secret or an unsafe secret?
I think the most important thing that parents can do to keep their kids safe is education. 95% of sexual abuse is preventable with education and awareness.
The best thing I can tell a parent is talk to your child. Have conversations, not just about child sexual abuse, but have conversations. Be a safe person for your child to go to.
Parents worry about having those conversations because they think what they're talking about is sex. What you're talking about are boundaries. You're talking about boundary violations. You're talking about safety. You're talking about what's acceptable and unacceptable behavior for an adult to do with the child.
Identifying how children feel, helping them identify feelings that make them feel not quite right. And if they don't feel quite right about a situation, confused, icky, scared, what are they going to do? I want them to go to individuals that they can talk to.
It's important to talk about if you feel uncomfortable, it's okay to say no. No matter who it is, whether it's somebody in your family, a family friend, a teacher, somebody in a religious organization, whatever, a stranger. It's okay to say, no, stop that. I don't like that. I'm going to tell.
Teaching children the difference between safe secrets and unsafe secrets. That if anyone asks them to keep a secret that makes them feel confused or icky, or asks them to keep a touching secret, that those are secrets that you tell right away.
Don't be afraid to begin those conversations with your child, because you love your children. And those are loving conversations to have. They're about protecting your child.
Child abuse reporting is the responsibility of everyone. Every citizen has the responsibility and the obligation to report if they see a child being abused or have suspicion that a child is being abused.
You don't have to know, you don't have to investigate, you don't have to ask more questions. It's not your job to investigate, it's the job of the department to investigate, or law enforcement to investigate.
We encourage people to report even when you don't know all the facts, because unfortunately a lot of the predators out there we have history with. And so you may not have all the facts, but in our systems and our databases, we may have other clues that can connect the dots. So, don't feel like you have to completely understand the situation before you report.
If you happen to be in a situation and you were walking down the street and you saw some smoke coming out of a house, you would report that immediately because you assume there's a fire. It's no different than if you get that gut feeling or that you see something that you think is inappropriate, you're not completely sure happening between an adult and the child, report it.
We've created a hotline system here in Florida, which makes it easy for people to report. We have internet capabilities, which makes it easier for people to report, and we're encouraging people to report because we cannot help the children who are being taken advantage of if we don't know about it.
It's a massive problem. It's a painful thing to look at, but open your eyes, because that's the only way we're going to make a difference.
They have to be aware. You have to be aware that there are these predators out there, and they could be right in your own home, just as she was in mine.
Arm yourself and empower your children to identify those things that make them feel unsafe or uncomfortable so that they can protect themselves.
There are people like me, people that will do these things with your children. They are there, and they are real, and they will abuse your children.